It is in the pitch blackness of a developing Barbados that ghosts roam. And the narrative of the folk center on things that go bump in the night. Now, I hope after I've delivered what I'm delivering to you today, that you go to bed with comfort. Because when I was a youngster, it was a custom for the older ones of the village and the family to act as griots, which is an African term for some of our tale tellers. And what was typical is that they would choose night to tell you these things. And they would tell you stories about all kinds of strange beasts and creatures. And I always wonder, why did they choose nighttime to tell you these things? My wife often reminds me of the time when she was asked to go to a lady to buy some sugar cakes. And it was at night when her grandmother would send her to buy the sugar cakes. And she was so afraid, because it was so dark, and because she was, again, like myself, figured there was something out there. What if it was? That she stopped short at a woman whose husband was a rose tree trimmer. Now, again, I don't know, for those of you who are not non-Barbadians, you might not understand what I'm talking about. But a rose tree trimmer is a cleaner of toilets. So it is a euphemism for a necessary activity. And the persons who were so classified as the rose tree trimmers were often viewed in the village as, in much the same way as perhaps in India, we might speak of the untouchables. You did not develop a social relationship with a rose tree trimmer. So it was to this house that my wife stopped to buy her sugar cakes. So she took the sugar cakes back to her grandmother, and not telling her where she got them from. And when she had finished eating the sugar cakes, she said, "Those are so sweet. I need to get some more." And of course, it was at that point that my wife confessed that she hadn't gone to the place that she'd been sent, but in fact, she had gone to another house. And the grandmother said to her, "Don't do it again. Never do it again." But by that time, of course, the first sugar cakes had lodged nicely into her stomach, and she was very happy otherwise. So the coming of light, particularly electric light, I have to say electric light, because you have light before of a kind. You did your homework by the way of a light of a kerosene oil lamp, a paraffin oil lamp. The light was rather dim, so you have to sit very close, and I'm convinced that many persons lost their eyesight after many years because of the conditions of those times. Later, they said the gas lamp came, and when that was a little brighter, but things were difficult. So the coming of light would do much to destroy these myths that were engendered by the blackness of the night. But right up into the 1950s, and in fact some in the 1960s, there were still some remnants of the earlier myths occupying the folk tales of Barbados. The nights were occupied by tales of hags and steel donkeys and duppies. There were imports too from our neighbors, particularly the Francophone Caribbean. Thus, Barbadians spoke in guarded terms of la diablesse, rendered in Barbados as larger bless or larger bless. And it's in that context that our attention now shifts from the technological developments that are taking place to an engagement of some of the folk tales, the folk memory of this island of Barbados. And although we have the order, which tells us that the order ought to be Duppies first, I'm going to go to the question of the steel donkeys first, because I thought that I would introduce that to you. So we take a closer look at the question of the steel donkey. Basically, the myth of the steel donkey, that is S-T-E-E-L, donkey, refers to the appearance of an apparition in the form of a donkey or a horse, which is characterized by bright red eyes, often described as eyes of fire, and as bearing a steel chain, so that you knew the steel donkey was around when you heard a chain being pulled or rattled. Incidentally, we are told that persons who were affected by the steel donkey were persons who had the steel donkey set on them. And the word set in the Barbadian context is a very important word. That had the steel donkey set on them by a person who they had offended in some way. Usually somebody who was a master or mistress of the occult arts. And I use the word occult arts there as a term which describes the activities that those persons were involved in. The appearance of the steel donkey is associated with the Song of Pebbles, also referred to by Barbadians as rock stones. Now, in order to understand why Barbadians say rock stones or not stones, you have to understand that our English is also derived from Africa. And I also note that we have the head of the Pan-African Commission with us right here, Dr. Murray. I'm glad to see you here. We say rock stones because Africans tend to add those descriptive additions to words to ensure that you understand what they're talking about. Africans then refer to things like the gate door. Now, you know a door is a door. A gate is also a form of door. But when you hear gate door, you are under no misunderstanding whatsoever. You know that the person is talking about a gate versus a kind of door. That's what it is. And there are all kinds of compound terms that Barbadians put together. So rock stones generally refer to small rocks, small pebbles. When there are bigger, you just say a big rock. That's all you say is a big rock. That is what it is. But these tend to appear at the appearance of the steel donkey. My informants, including Dr. Carol Watson, who reported that he was taken by his mother to see the steel donkey somewhere in Bay Street, have never confessed to having actually seen the animal. They've been there. And the fact that he went shows that it is not only among the African community of Barbados that such myths predominated and remain, but it's also found in the European community, the Barbadian European community. The Merry Men, the celebrated Barbadian minstrel group, have recorded a song that might well have captured the descriptions of some of these erstwhile witnesses. It describes the steel donkey as follows, and some of it is on the board. With his eyes as red as two smut lamps, and he jumping and prancing about. A long thing like a muffler stretched out behind him, and his tongue hanging out his mouth. That is the Merry Men's version. And some of that, of course, is obtained from speaking with persons who swore that they had seen the sea donkey. Have you ever seen him? Okay, you can speak with me after and confess if you ever seen him. I have carried out some research on this phenomenon called the steel donkey. And so far as I can detect, it is more than likely that the steel donkey shares the same origin as the rolling calf of Jamaica and some other Caribbean locations. And as I go on, you'll understand why I believe strongly that the steel donkey has the same origin. David Brailsford, in his book, Duppies Stories, Jamaica's Ghosts, Gremlins, and Rolling Calves, tells us that the rolling calf, quote, I hope that is on the screen. Yes, you get it here. Now the rolling calf is an unpleasantly ghostly black bull. He is likely to confront you on some lonely moonlit night in the bush, where he will stand with his eyes dripping fire. That's one of the telltale descriptions. Shaking his enormous horns and striking sparks as he paws the ground. Around his neck, there will probably be a rattling chain. So here in Jamaica, we move from Barbados, you have the rolling calf, and the description of the rolling calf has some similarity to the description of the steel donkey. Yes. Brailsford's of the view that the rolling calf myth is derived itself from a myth from Africa of the African bull Gashanami, the god of vengeance. Another researcher, Leonard Barrett, in speaking about the stone throwing that often accompanies such apparitions, he cites an ethnologist, John Joseph, who states, and you see some of what he states on the board, while some stone throwing is not an invariable element in Portuguese, let me go a little further, popular opinion has come to ascribe certain general propensities to the missiles of Duppies. And he's here talking about the rolling calf. The stones may come from any possible direction or from various directions at one and the same time. Or again, they may seem to come from nowhere, simply materializing out of nothing. Remember I said that associated with the steed donkey was the idea of pebbles being thrown. You never saw who threw the pebbles. You never saw who threw the stones, but they landed on the roof of the house, and you were sure that there was something up there at work in disturbing your sleep. That is the nature of what we found so far. Yet another ethnologist who did their research in Jamaica during the 1920s, Martha Warren Beckwith, has made some observations that appear to validate our decision to link the Barbados steed donkey with the rolling calf of Jamaica and other locations in the Northern Caribbean. Her descriptions were borrowed from 19th century observers, people who lived in Jamaica in the 19th century. From one of them, surnamed Parks, she writes, let me see if I get it here. Yes, okay. Let me just get this young here first, right. Says, the apparition appears, and notice her description, in the form of a hornless goat, black, white, or spotted, with a collar around its neck to which is attached a short chain that drags upon the ground. And notice again, there's a short chain that drags along the ground. Its eyes are red, and at night look like blazing fires. Do you see the description again? It's again the similarity of description. Its tail, unlike a goat's, curls over its back. And I think of the Merry Man song with a long thing like a muffler sticking out behind him. And again, I see some similarities. Then the quote goes on to say that the front feet are shaped, one like a horse's hoof, and the other like a human foot, and the back feet are goat-shaped. That's not all. Another researcher who she cites called Banbury tells us the rolling calf, let me see if I can get that here. Let me get past that. Tell us that the rolling calf may take the form of various animals, such as cat, dog, hog, goat, horse, or bull. But its most dangerous is the brindle cat that has the power to grow from the size of a dog, a cat or a dog, to that of a horse or bull. And I rest my case on that point. I'm suggesting that the rolling calf and the steed donkey share a common generic origin. And that generic origin is most likely out of African myth. The fact is that some aspects of these various manifestations of the spirit world may be associated with myths that come out of the African past. In some cases of powers interacting with the spirit world, Africans speak about witches who may be male or female. Kofi Agosa, in his Religion, Ritual, and African Traditions in Africa, speaks of witches who fly through the air emitting lights and balls of fire. Another researcher, S.F. Nadel, I'm not sure if we managed to capture that on our yes, we got that one, speaks of witches who are familiars in owls or other night creatures. Another researcher, R.S. Rattray, in his Religion and Art in Ashanti, that's in the Ghana coast in Western Africa, notes, quote, witches can transform themselves into birds, chiefly owls, crows, vultures, and parrots, into houseflies, fireflies, into hyenas, leopards, lions, elephants, bongo, which is, I think, a member of the antelope or that kind of family, and all Sasa animals, animals related to that environment. But notwithstanding the fact that many of these myths appear to be of African origin, we do not deny the possibility of some contributions from European, Chinese, and even East Indian folk myths. Among European traditions dating back to the Greeks, the gods are often pictured as having fire-breathing steeds. And there's a myth of the Minotaur, a half-human, half-bull creature. Many of you will know that, and the history of Crete. Among the Chinese too, there's a fire god Lohisian, whose horse breathes out flames. East Indians also have a legend in which the Hindi fire god Agni had fiery horses that pull his chariot. So we're not denying that there's a possibility that you might have these influences on the Caribbean folk myths. Particularly when we note that in several Caribbean territories we have the influx of East Indians and Chinese who have come in since the abolition of enslavement. And there's a suspicion by many Caribbean people, and even those in Barbados, that many of these East Indians and Chinese have magical powers. And they can set something on you like something called the Baku Man. Now, some of you don't know what I'm talking about, but there's a story of people setting Baku. When you notice the word set, the ability to put a curse on you. So you have this attributed to the East Indians. And the idea is that if you cheat them, most of them are itinerant tradesmen and women who travel around the island, that if you cheat them, then they can set a Baku on you. Or deliver some spirit like a spirit of Conrad. And many of you know the story of Conrad, which inhabits your belly. So that is